Hey, good evening. It's Wednesday, November 29th, 2024. This is What's Happening Dracut. You may notice that there is an absence of our regular hosts, but you're stuck with me tonight.
I think I'm pinch hitting, right?
And yes, we have a great pinch hitter here, George Drusillars, who will be chiming in on a number of different things.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us. We're coming from DATV Studios on Mill Street, high above the Beaver Brook.
Yep.
We hope to have an interesting show. We have a number of topics that deal predominantly with our last town meeting, our last selectmen meeting, and I think there's quite a bit of interesting stuff there. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. We went to my daughter's house, and she did an awesome job and did a lot of the cooking, and we just kind of relaxed. I think I watched full football games that day. So, and that for me is a nirvana. If I can watch football all day without being, without getting yelled at. Get away from that TV.
Well, it's expected on Thanksgiving to watch football.
I just don't even know. How did Dracut High do against Methuen?
I have to admit, I believe they lost.
Oh, okay.
I am not
well,
entirely
at least
sure.
They got a season in.
They did, which was very good.
And won a couple games, so And they had I read in the Pop Warner team won their conference and went to the States.
Yeah,
so
there was. I think there were 3 teams from Dracut that were actually in some competition.
We'll see if the pipeline can fill up a little bit.
You would hope so, and certainly the Pop Warner should be able to carry through and hopefully be successful.
And there's a lot of great athletes. Like I know because I watch my grandson play basketball and baseball and flag football that don't participate in Pop Warner because of either the helmet issue or whatever. They don't want to go and get them hitting yet.
Yeah.
And there's some great kids coming through the process, and we'll see how many, hang around and end up playing football.
That sounds great. Yeah. I just want to remind everybody that you can follow us on Facebook page, What's Happening Dracut. This is a live show, so you're welcome to call in. 978-957-4243. Again, that's 978-957-4243. Feel free to give us a call and make comments on what we're talking about, or bring up something that you want to. You're wondering if we were talking about it. Well, we have our one usual guest, as we always have, and that's the weather with Sean Kelly. So why don't we throw it over to Sean for the weather?
Hi everyone, here's a quick look at the forecast. Starting off with tonight, temps are going to drop into the low 20s tonight with partly cloudy conditions. Winds won't be that bad, coming out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then as we head into the day on Thursday, just about average, 50 degrees for us back here in Dracut, mostly sunny conditions. Winds again not that bad at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then as we head into Thursday night, temps are going to drop back down into the 30s, kind of mild for an overnight low temperature for this time of year, with partly cloudy conditions. Then as we head into the day on Friday, rain is likely for the second part of the day. Clouds are going to stop building just around noontime. And then as we head into the 5 or 6 o'clock time frame right now, it looks like rain's going to start to move in. Winds are going to be coming out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then as we head into Friday night, a cold rain, not expecting any mixing or any snow this time around as we head into Friday night. And that is it for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Sean. Weather sounds pretty good. I mean,
not too bad.
Seasonable anyway, which is good. So we have a few events that will be coming up here in Dracut.
Right.
All on Saturday, the 2nd, December 2nd. So we have the tree lighting, which happens in front of the school complex, and that happens at 6 o'clock. So I've seen DPW out and about stringing up lights.
Yeah, you see Louise out there with them too, and getting everything squared away. And then during the day, they have the gingerbread house competition.
That's correct,
at Harmony Hall. And I think there's one more thing, right? You were saying.
Yeah. So the gingerbread competition, I believe that's Rotary that hosts that. That's from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And they'll have hot cocoa and some refreshments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I used to work at that, and right after the tree was lit and Santa came, people were cold, and they came in, and we had hot chocolate for them and donuts, and usually got those donated. So
yep.
Hopefully they have a good turnout.
Yeah, and I have heard that Gay Corey will be going around with a camera.
With Richard Silvio, right?
Well, I'm not sure if Richard is going to be at the gingerbread.
Right.
I believe he's going to be at the tree lighting.
Oh, okay.
But
She usually makes her way over there, though. You know?
I think she may, but I think she's trying to get there during the day so they can, look at the gingerbread houses
Right.
and talk to some of the guests and kind of inform
Have you
the
built
town
one
of
yet?
that. I have never done that.
Really?
I'm not sure if I want to.
Right. I know. Because yours would be expected to be,
Well,
something you design.
I suppose the expectation of what I would do is one thing that says, I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, they could. I've seen some by architects that are very elaborate.
And something that comes in from the Vogue and the Greater Lowell, and they do a great job.
They have They have different categories.
Correct.
There's kids, and then
there's
there's adults, adolescents, teenagers.
I mean, I remember
and then
Frank-
they have professional. I think.
Right.
A
I remember
category
Frank
professional.
Antifonario built basically a log cabin with with gingerbread.
Yep.
Rachel made and Frank, who builds houses, built a little house.
Yeah. So the two great things that are happening at the school complex, both the tree lighting and the gingerbread competition. And during the day, in the morning and into early afternoon, there's the Salvation Radiothon. Salvation Army Radiothon is happening
This Saturday.
this Saturday.
Okay.
It'll be broadcast on WCAP from 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
You doing a simulcast this year?
DATV is doing a simulcast
awesome.
also, and that goes from 9 in the morning to 1 o'clock.
Yeah, this is a good year with people. If you have it, try to help because, we're in a time of need where we have legendary inflation that's really eating up people's paychecks.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. And I like to say, but for the grace of God go I,
Right.
and that I'm in a good position, and there are a lot less fortunate people that that do rely on
Right.
this helping hand. Well, why don't we get into one of the subjects?
Sure. Sure.
So, the first clip I'm going to show comes from the Board of Selectmen meeting that just happened November 21st, which was a week ago this past Tuesday. And it deals primarily with the town manager's report and budget issues. And Ian Vandal is kind of going through some of the different scenarios that may be involved in where we are and how she foresees things. It's a clip that's about 9 minutes long, but I think all of it is very pertinent to any sort of discussion that we're going to be having. So,
Okay, let's see it.
If you gentlemen would roll that clip, please.
See if they're paying attention in there.
So tonight, Victor and I have been working hard on the budget, and I'd like to give you an overview of where we are. And I will say, none of it's good at this point. In preparation for the 2025 budget, we are projecting a deficit of approximately $2.1 million. We've scoured the budget. Every line item is getting reviewed, and reductions will be felt in every department with the absence of additional revenue sources. Many, if not all, of our fixed costs are increasing in double digits. As you can see on the handout I just gave to you guys, the regional dispatch, for example, is going up. It's 100%, but that's our 100% appropriation that we have to do for fiscal '25. Trash, 9.87%. School budget, 7.7%. School transportation, 5%. Everything is up way above the 2.5%, which is the levy limit. Along with that, health insurance is at 11.9%. It may go up to 12 or 13%. We don't have the final numbers. We don't have a lot of final numbers yet. In most cases, the increases above are an obligation that we have to pay, and it's strictly being driven by inflation. Inflation is a main culprit, as well as other communities. We are experiencing increases that are unheard of. We're also seeing a shift in net school spending of approximately 8% per year, causing the town's obligation to meet net school spending increase, resulting in tremendous pressure on all other town departments. None of these cuts include the school budget, but we are proposing a change to the administrative chargeback that's based on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. This will help offset the deficit, but it is in no way the solution. The solution must be much broader and larger. What are our options? Well, we have a few options. The first would be 100% cuts. With that, we are going to experience some serious reductions in staffing levels in every department, including public safety, a reduction in office hours to accommodate the personnel losses, a reduction or elimination of programs in various departments, no movement on our public safety complements. We will refrain from filling existing vacancies. We'll use attrition, causing vacancies in other departments. Unmandated activities will be suspended. I don't have the details on that yet, but there are many that will come into play. The maintenance of buildings and grounds will be severely impacted. Snow and ice removal will be focused on main roads. Side roads will be plowed, but not to the maximum that they are at this point. We typically plow down to the pavement. We will not be able to do that going forward. Overtime in town hall departments for coverage will be eliminated, and clerks on boards and committees would have to rely on the officers or the volunteers to complete the minutes. Recreation programs will rely on volunteers. A reduction in overtime in both public safety divisions. Technology upgrades and security platform struggles could put us at risk for any kind of cyber attack. Capital projects will be impacted. Other than the current projects underway and feasibility study, we will not be recommending any additional projects going forward. We need to reserve the free cash. The loss of state aid for the library and LRTA, and the loss in certifications for some employees. A lot of the expenses you'll see on the spreadsheet I gave you. I don't want to go through the whole thing. I'm not on the agenda to do that tonight, but I will ask you to take a look at it when you get home. It has the FY 25 to 27 projected budget, and also there's an explanation of the projected revenue and expenses attached to that Victor put together. We have heavily invested in capital items and projects by using free cash and ARPA funds. Those funds funded equipment, construction, and other programming that we've been unable to complete and does not result in recurring costs. It should be noted that ARPA funds were not intended to solve the budget issue. It is strictly for capital items, including construction, equipment, etc. Free cash is a misnomer. It is not free, and it does not provide a definitive solution to a deficit. With the infusion of the cannabis impact fee, which is not included in the budget, it has contributed to our positive cash position, providing us with the ability to address long-awaited projects and replacement of much-needed equipment. For FY25, the deficit is projected to be at $2.1 million. If only free cash is used, it would simply kick the can down the road, making the deficit for FY26 $3.6 million. It's simply unsustainable to rely on free cash to fund the budget. If we have a solid plan in place to infuse new revenues, we certainly can use some free cash to soften the blow for a few years. With the assumption that the Board of Selectmen are not in favor of new fees or an override, the above cuts would be revisited and likely be more devastating to all town departments for FY26 and beyond. A significant number of services will be negatively impacted and will be felt by the residents. In other words, unless there is a permanent solution, the deficit will continue to plague the budget for many years to come. It's very different when you are dealing with a deficit for 1 year, and if this, for example, was $2.2 million for this year, and next year was $300,000, we could handle that. That's not the case. The hypothetical solution, this model would consider assessing fees for trash and stormwater and/or attempt an override. I'm not suggesting any of the above, but it's something we really need to consider. The use of free cash could be an option with the commitment to a phased fee schedule for trash, stormwater, etc. Let's assume a hypothetical trash and stormwater fee is exercised along with the use of some free cash. For example, in FY25, the deficit is at $2.1 million. The free cash that we would recommend if we were to use free cash would be $900,000. We would also include in there a $1.2 million trash fee, which would be $110 per household. For 26, the deficit goes up to $3.6 million. Similar situation, $190 a year for the trash fee. In deficit for 2027, it goes up to $5.1 million. You know what I'm getting at here is we can't continue, or we haven't in the past, but we cannot use one-time revenues because it's just going to be a cumulative problem that we have to address. Other options, we do have some stabilization and reserve funds that could be used to offset some of the departments, but again, that's a one-time fix, and we would not recommend that. These funds are reserved for emergency and one-time expenses, not recurring expenses. Therefore, once we use them, they're gone. An override would be, in my recommendation, would be a minimum of $5 million. As part of the override, we could eliminate the community preservation tax at 2% with the cost of $110 per year for the average household. This funding would be used to smooth the inflation obstacles we are facing, and hopefully the increases will level off in the coming years. This will require a commitment to freeze the override amount to be distributed over a defined period of time as needed. We would still implement the cuts noted above, but it would ease the pain. For example, an override of $5 million with an average home price of $550,000. If we use the override over a 3-year period, the total cost per year by the end of that 3 years would be $550 annually for the homeowner, the taxpayer. With the elimination of the CPC tax amounts, it'll be less. For example, FY25, the net increase will be $110. There's no guarantee that that commitment will be the only solution beyond FY26. Everything depends on inflation. Unlike most private corporations, we do not have the flexibility to create revenues from operations. We have limitations of the Mass General Law Proposition 2.5 to contend with. Unlike other communities that have other means of revenue, Dracut does not have a split tax rate. We do not have a large industrial commercial base. We do not have hotels or motels. We've adopted the meals tax and the cannabis tax, which has benefited us, but we are at the maximum allowed. In conclusion, our only solutions to solve this deficit include departmental cuts, expenses, and positions, all non-school, school chargeback agreement update, a trash fee, a stormwater fee, an override, including the elimination of the community preservation program, defined infusion of cash, and a combination of all of the above.
Well, that was sobering, wasn't it?
Wow.
I don't recall Sean Kelly predicting rain on this one, but
No, I know.
very, very sobering. I mean, I feel like I should be wearing a black armband with this, but I don't know. Your first impressions on it? I've heard these things coming down for the last few months, but it's kind of draconian when it's really, when you take what they don't have and divide it into the whole budget, it's like it's about 2.5%. So and they're getting 2.5. I'd like to see a real crunch of the numbers. I mean, she was in generalities there. I'd like to see, well, what's coming. What are the chargebacks for the school? What do they include? I want to know what they be full. What are the schools not paying for? Well, and that is a main issue. That is an issue that she gets into about looking at all the,
Right.
the allowable chargebacks that DESE actually lists. Apparently, the town isn't charging all of those fully.
Well,
But right, maybe it's a time to take a look at that. Now, when you reference essentially 2.5% of the budget, if you pull out the required spending from the schools, that number probably actually goes up because discretionary is really only on, if you want to call it the town side.
right.
None of it is really on the school side is discretionary when we're dealing with net school spending.
I have a basic, distrust of government, all government, and it seems like government wants to always get paid first, right? When you look at it, right, we're looking at inflationary trends that are mind-boggling, crippling, right? And now we want to go and we want to charge for trash, and we want to do stormwater. And how many people are on? Has anybody looked on who's on fixed incomes, and what people can afford? I don't think Dracut's income per capita is up there with similar towns. I could be wrong.
So the average household, if I
58,000?
if I recall, no, the average household income in Dracut, I believe, is somewhere near 75,000.
And that's usually two-income households too.
Correct. That
Right.
is correct.
I just like to see. I'd like to see where all the money goes. And I was on the finance committee for years, and I could open the book and look where things are going, and I just don't see. I know they've met in Tri-Board, which I was on the first one, and I know some people have been howling about what's coming up, but I don't think you solve this. I don't think the community will stand for an override, especially since we may be getting another override coming on the building of was it Greenmont or Campbell School, right?
Campbell School is currently going through the MSBA.
Right. So what happens if they get all the funding? We're not getting 100% funding on that, correct?
No, I would estimate that the MSBA would probably
50%?
Well, so the high school, they received 62.5% reimbursement.
Which we're not finished paying for, correct?
No, that still has another, I think, 10 years to go easily. But the high point of that repayment should have already passed.
Right.
So that number should be starting to drop. But if you're looking at the Campbell School, and they're only starting to do the feasibility study at the moment. Well, actually, they're going out for requests for qualifications for an OPM and then and then a designer. But you're not seeing construction of a new Campbell School until late 2025.
But that's right in the middle of this crisis, and
It
someone's
does,
going to
it
be
does,
asking.
it
Someone's
does.
going to be asking for money for that.
And if I had to take a stab at it, I would say you're probably looking at 130 million easy, if not slightly more, depending on, again, what inflation does. And
Well,
so that's a big nut.
it is, and so there's so many costs coming at people. I don't know. I don't do that type of work, and I don't look at it on a daily basis. But I think you've got to look at the first thing you got to consider is the impacts on the day-to-day lives of people. As you and I have talked, someone has said in the past, well, that's a cup of coffee a day, right?
And
that's
you know
my
what?
cup of coffee.
I've always said that.
Right.
That's my cup of coffee, and I enjoy my coffee.
Oh, a little disclaimer here. These are my views, not necessarily. I've always done that because, as my wife Tammy was involved with politics, was on the board, people would ask me my opinions, thinking that were her opinions. And if you know both of us, there's sometimes we don't agree.
You're both fiercely privileged with having your own opinion.
Correct.
We have a couple of comments on Facebook. What about an audit of town expenses and half days on Fridays?
I think that's a good idea because when Jim Duggan came on, didn't we do an audit of the school department?
There was an audit done of the school department. I think
DPW,
DPW
police.
was also done. Police
Was done.
Police
Fire
and
was
fire,
done.
I believe, was done, and it stopped.
The only
at-
one that was stopped and
was town
hall.
As a matter of fact, I think library may have also had an
Yeah.
audit.
So
on their own.
they were. I think Jim wanted them not to get, not the audit to continue at town hall, and I think all bets are on. Everything's on the table now.
I think it really needs to be. We have another comment from Josh Taylor. What about the new construction in town? Has that factored into essentially new property taxes?
Right.
What they refer to as new growth.
New growth, yeah, and that's the coward's way of saying we approve the tax. We went to town meeting, and you go to town meeting for the budget. They never include a number that says with 2.5%, with level funding, with the year before. So you don't see your tax until you get it, and the Board of Selectmen has recommended tax increases for the past since 2.5% came in.
Well, some people
every year.
Some people could say that they've never recommended any sort of tax because it's always been assumed that
They're protected.
You just put it up, right?
They're protected by, I think there's a law that protects them so they don't have to vote on that. I mean, they just vote, okay, here's our number this year. Like last year, I think it was $92 million. Am I right?
This year's budget, I believe, was like 95
Yeah, so
million.
last year was like 92, so 92 and now 95, that's inflation, which has got everybody.
Yes, yes. So if people are unfamiliar with 2.5, and it could be on how it works typically. So what you've been levied in town for the previous year, the town can add 2.5% to that number.
Right.
And then any taxes from new growth get added to that.
Right.
So the comment that Josh Taylor makes about, what about new growth? To be honest, there's really not a lot in town.
I think they include that number in.
It's a projection
in the projection number.
Because you could look back over the last 10 years.
And so if this
see what
number
it
is
was.
2.5% more, basically than 2.5% more than last year, right? And then you had that 2.5% that came in, so it's really about a 5%, right? So, and inflation is steaming along at what, 9-10% now?
Yeah.
I mean, unabated for the last few years.
Correct. And as I think I had said a little earlier, that for the town budget, if you essentially extract net school spending and take that out of what would be considered discretionary to spending for the rest of the town, so now you're down to some $40 million, maybe even a little less than that. That 2% now needs to come out of that. So that kind of just
I think if
snowballs it.
if that came out of the schools, I think the schools would be in court for an injunction.
Oh, probably.
I don't think there's any question about that.
So the formula was just revised, and it raised raised the numbers for the schools,
Right.
and they got, I think, this past year, another $3 million.
Yeah, and also they came back to town meeting for another $500,000, right? For money that wasn't charged properly. They was supposed to go to charter schools and came back to
okay.
our schools.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that money came back,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I mean, there's certainly a lot to swallow on that one. There was talk about a trash fee
Well,
of
there you
some
go.
$110.
You get a trash fee.
resident.
You get a stormwater fee, and you don't raise taxes, but you're raising more money.
Correct.
It's not like that's coming out of the budget, and I think.
Though those fees need to be
forget who
earmarked
warned-
for those services.
I forget who warned it, but I think someone warned Jim Duggan about that, about taking it, because he tried to set up a separate fee years ago, but the selectmen stopped him and said take it out of the budget, the stormwater fee.
Correct. Well, yeah, the stormwater,
Fee.
definitely.
And then now, I think trash fee is, I know I pay for an extra barrel because we need it.
Yeah, well.
And we have a self-imposed trash fee, my family.
Yeah.
So. But I think you just add these things up, and it just, you're talking, I don't know how many people are on fixed incomes, or people aren't getting, I don't know what kind of, raises they're getting, or I don't think it's keeping up.
It hadn't, to the best of my knowledge, it has not kept in. It has
hasn't.
risen, but has not kept
That's right.
pace with inflation.
With inflation, which means everything. It means what you pay for taxes. I mean, we pay. I know. I'm not sure between federal, state, and town. I'm probably at 40%. I probably work 2.5 days just to pay the government.
Yeah.
So.
There's a couple of people in here chiming in about what about the cannabis money, and we'll be talking about that in a little while, because that's a very important aspect of not only the town budget but possible lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, can the legislature change that aspect, knowing that the towns are getting murdered with this inflation? I mean, like, I know we get a sales tax on food, right? And we don't.
No, you don't have sales tax on
purchased food.
Right, restaurants.
Like if we go to one of the
takeout.
restaurants in Dracut, it's like 7 cents on 100, but it still reaps us.
So that's the additional tax that's permissible to be levied by the local municipality.
That's right, and so maybe there should be a local rate. On the can, we have 4 of them.
I think I believe there's some fashion of that in there.
Is there?
Because, yeah, because there's certainly a tax associated with that goes back to the communities that have the host agreements.
Well, Dracut has to look past how it operated in the past. I mean, like we're not welcoming for, maybe the big box stores or anything like that, like something large. because they don't want to use up the land. And I know we have issues coming with housing, with the MBTA thing and Murphy Farm, which is another thing,
Yeah,
coming down the line that we'll have to support with any infrastructure, with schools, with public safety. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's certainly, if you want to call it building our way out of this, I think is an option, but much like, when's the best time to plant a shade tree? 20 years ago? We're in that position now.
Look,
we can't build our way out of it right now.
Phil, how many years ago was it when 213 was proposed to come through Dracut?
I saw a master plan from 1968 that showed a new road.
Right, and that was, I heard
And that looked like that was an extension of 213.
213 going through Dracut into maybe picking up Route 3 down
I
the road.
believe it was supposed to connect to Route 3.
I mean, that would have made a huge difference to the economy in this town. But now we're landlocked as far as major highways. We really don't have a full service grocery store. We have Hannaford, which is in the back is in Lowell.
Correct.
We don't have that. I mean, actually, some of the Demulises were from Dracut, and they couldn't deal with the local. I mean, we need to maybe, creatively think of how we're going to maybe attract business, but that doesn't move the needle for years.
That's correct.
I mean, we need to put $20 billion worth of new type of development to increase it, to make a dent in the tax
right.
rate.
So the town currently is nearly 93% residential.
Right. It needs to be like 25.
To make it move, I believe it's probably at this point over $50 million.
Yeah,
worth
it's
of
like 20 to
investment in
25%. And then Chelmsford went back on that, and they have far more economic development than we do. And they went back; they wanted to get rid of their business rate.
Yes,
because I do them any good.
Because I think they're only at like 20% resident commercial, which still is not quite enough to tip the scales. Although Chelmsford is fairly desirable as far as businesses because they have a lot of
you got to hand it to
highways.
Jim Duggan while he was here. He was very effective in stirring up and seeing if he can get people to settle here. We had that the assisted living. We had 2 assisted livings, the one you designed and the one that's near my office, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And we also have Lowell General came with urgent care.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be something else behind that.
Genesis was supposed to be putting in a rehab hospital.
And we had a special town meeting
to rezone the property.
To rezone the property.
Absolutely.
And that deal fell through. But he tried.
He did. That would have brought another. I think the estimate on that project was some $25 million. So, I mean, that little corner on Loon Hill was essentially a boom of nearly $80 million for Dracut.
Well, and I don't see the current manager.
Vai ser um network de verdade, não é um network só para a gente ficar conversando que a gente faz é um network de resultado que eu falo, né? É um network de resultado. Então, nós vamos estar no clube falando de negócio o tempo inteiro. Porque a gente precisa se ajudar.
I mean, he certainly was aggressive in knowing what he needed to do to try to bring things in.
He kept his nose to the grindstone too, and he kept his ear to the ground. We have a phone call. Hello, caller. Hello?
Hello,
Hi, who is this?
Patty Perry.
Hi, Patty, how are you?
I'm having a hard time to hear you.
Okay, how are you? If you still have your television on, I would suggest turning that down also so you don't get...
Oh, okay, that's probably what it is, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's better.
There you go. How are you?
Yeah. What my question is do either one of you know what's going on at the corner of Lakeview Avenue and Nashua Road? That house has been down for quite a while, but you hear all different types of things that are going to be put in there. Does anybody actually know what's going on there?
I know that it was approved for a convenience store that had a satellite coffee and donut shop.
I heard that.
But I have not heard
things
anything
either.
since.
Oh, you haven't? So we really don't know what's going on there.
I don't know if the developer is having financial issues or if he's looking to sell the project.
Supply issues.
Supply issues. There was a lot of underground work that was done for stormwater and piping.
Yeah.
And,
well, I know a lot of projects have been put back because of some supply issues. I know one I'm familiar with, not in Dracut, but they couldn't get components for the electricals, the electrical boxes. So they had to hold the project had to wait because they couldn't bring electricity down to this part of this development. So they finally came in. So I don't know if it's supply issues or
I don't know if it was the realignment project that the state was doing on Nashua Road in Lakeview Ave.
In the beginning, they started out kind of strong in the beginning, but then all of a sudden it started to die down. So you're just wondering if they were going to what they were going to do with it, because it was going good when they first took the house down. It seemed like they were coming along, but then it started to die down after a while.
No, you're absolutely correct.
When I ask Dollar General, they don't know either. They'll say, I don't know, we hear different things, but we're not sure.
Sometimes there's phases, there's delays in projects that, just come up. Whether it's design or whether it's something that just slow a project down and stop it for a while.
Yeah.
You may see some activity.
I
don't know that.
Do you know what's going on, what's going to be put there? That's what was my main question.
Again, I know it was approved for a convenience store with a coffee and donut satellite.
Weren't they going to put a light there,
really need another coffee and donut shop.
Yeah, well,
you know what?
They do the demographics.
I'm not going to knock, sub shops, pizza shops. Because we get
it's business. People need to have business.
We get tax from them, and I think it's up to about $500,000 in our budget. That little few pennies that people pay at our restaurants. Because Dracut, one of the strengths of Dracut is we have nice restaurants. I mean,
absolutely.
We've got as good as anywhere for the size of our town.
Yes, we do.
So
we have a great town. I love my town.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for calling.
But thank you so much for taking my call, and you answered as best you can for what my question was. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too, Patty.
Bye.
So, so to the fact that, and I said earlier that we could build our way out of it, and so that's a big issue. What are you building?
Right.
People do their demographics, and oftentimes it comes down to these little things.
Of a 110 grill coming to Dracut, and there's, and things like that.
I tried my best.
I know you did.
I know the owner of the 110 grill.
And if you don't have the answer, what's going on in that corner, I don't think anybody has the answer, because you got your ear to the ground on construction in Dracut.
I think it's a number of different factors. Certainly, COVID and the supply chain came in. I think it was the redesign of that whole intersection. They may have the developer may only be essentially leasing to an entity that was a convenience store or something like that, and they may have backed out.
Yeah, kind of like down the road you had. Because of public pressure or whatever happened with, what was it, with Walgreens?
Walgreens,
we can revisit that.
Yeah, so, what happens to that corner, I think, is one of Dracut's biggest problems, is that I think part of it is that it doesn't have its own identity to begin with, and it's looking for itself and what to do.
It's funny. My wife and I were talking about downtown Dracut. I think of downtown Dracut as Navy Yard, because that's where I grew up, the Navy Yard section, right? But if you realize, downtown Dracut can be down by Dracut Center off Loon Hill. Loon Hill down that area. And then you go into Collinsville, and you have the mill right where we're in. We have a restaurant here in the mill, and and you got a strip mall up there. I mean, what's downtown Dracut? There is no downtown Dracut. There's three separate, distinct business areas.
Right.
Is what we have.
I would concur with that. Navy Yard, certainly downtown area. Collinsville, as you said, the epicenter right around. Both are around the mills.
Yes.
And then there's a business district.
Navy Yard has the mills too, and
Yeah.
And now we have a storage place up. Where it used to be. I forget what it used to be. It wasn't anything. I think it was just near the Beaver Brook on that side of the falls.
That was where they stored a lot of the chemicals.
That's right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
so now it's a big storage building.
Right.
another issue is, so with the zoning bylaw should be taking care of all of this. And unfortunately, I don't think the zoning bylaw review committee actually has a full grasp of what they're trying to do.
Well, it became politicized.
It very much
anytime
so.
you politicize something, instead of looking at it, when you look at things through a political lens, you don't do things for sometimes the wrong reasons. And it just gets frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, so it seems to have turned more into make sure the grammar is correct, make sure that it's gender neutral. So I mean, it's really not doing nothing to essentially help define what Dracut wants to be.
Well, that's why we could get back to a charter commission instead of having it appointed by the current politicos. Right? We have the people actually elect who you want to look at your charter. How you want to look at the charter. I think the charter needs to be overhauled, which we can talk about later.
So yeah, let's. So one other thing, I don't know if you heard it mentioned, but Ann Vandal had mentioned, possibility of closing the COA, the senior center essentially, and the library as an example. Back in, was it 88 or something like that?
They had.
There was a lot of financial trouble then, and they ended up closing the library for a few months. And then I think businesses rallied to kind of give some operating cash back to it and
to me,
get it going again.
That kind of sounds like a threat.
It does. I mean, all of it, to be honest, all this sounds like a threat the way it was presented.
This draconian, like people who I speak to a lot of people, and usually we don't agree because I like to speak to people who I don't agree with, to see if if I'm not thinking properly. But that whole, what kind of town do you want to live in? Well, Dracut is a bedroom town, bedroom community. If you really look at it, I want to live in a safe town.
I had said to somebody who mentioned it being a bedroom town that I said, well, actually, it's more of a drive-through town than anything else.
Yeah, well, bedroom drive-through to get your coffee in the morning, right? Coming home, picking up a pizza.
Right, but the fact that even the people who are here are almost just driving through.
Well, they're coming back.
Well, they come back, but to do. And then we get into
like you and I are the only
get into your coffee and donuts and your pizza.
You and I are the only people, basically who live here and work here. That's unusual.
I'm in a very small percentage of people who can actually
walk
to work in Dracut.
I actually don't. I work in Dracut, but I don't work at a company from Dracut.
Right.
I'm able to work remotely.
So there are a lot of things to contemplate, certainly with the budget. I certainly don't have all the answers. I have more questions than anything else, which is probably the best way to start.
So how did I'm kind of interested to see how they reacted to Ann. Are we going to see that?
No, you're not.
Oh, okay.
Because it gets into it, and you'd certainly go to DATV, DracutTV.org.
You're going to make me watch the meeting?
Go on demand, and you can watch the meeting on demand. The next clip I have here, they were talking about hiring a new specialized counsel for cannabis. Now, mind you, Tony Archinsky had asked previously if they could hire a special attorney to handle the 40Bs and help coach Dracut through these 40B projects and protect the town. And that was shot down.
So we hired a municipal attorney, correct?
Correct.
And they have no experience in their office with cannabis?
So our town attorney, or the selectman attorney.
That's a good distinction, because he actually works for the Board of Selectmen.
He's the selectman's attorney.
We really don't have town council. Selectmen have town council.
Right. So he is suggesting that hiring a specialized attorney for cannabis is like, his office is more of a general practitioner, and then this cannabis attorney is a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
So why don't we roll that clip, please, and we'll discuss it after that.
Yeah.
Agreement with KP Law for special counsel for legal services as it pertains to cannabis.
So, Madam Chair, I didn't take this. I put a memo in your packet As you're aware, I've been talking about over the last year that the Cannabis Commission is going to be issuing their new regulations that are going to impact all communities and as well as cannabis facilities. On September 22nd, the Cannabis Commission voted 3-1 to adopt those new regulations. In fact, these are the regulations. It's double-sided, so it probably looks like it's 9 print. So it's a lot of information in there. They will go into effect on March 1st, 2024. The new regulations will allow the Cannabis Commission to review existing host agreements for compliance. The new regulations will impact communities' impact fees and the reporting requirements that will be overly burdensome and stringent. The Cannabis Commission will review all invoices for impact fees on an annual basis and determine their validity and whether they have valid expenditures to charge an impact fee. Any interested party out there can file a complaint against us, a municipality, if we find that we're in violation of any of the regulations, and the Cannabis Commission can issue sanctions against communities for non-compliance, and they can assess fines up to $50,000 per occurrence if we do not take the corrective action in a timely manner. The new regulations also creates new requirements for municipalities to address equity in the industry through a number of provisions aimed at attracting and aiding social equity businesses. There's a lot more, but it's certainly put a lot of burdensome on us as a community to understand the new regulations and to work with our cannabis facilities. As you know, we have 4 retail facilities and 2 growth facilities in town. In my discussions with the town manager and Attorney DeLuca, we talked about these new regulations and how we want to move forward with trying to understand them, work with our host community, our cannabis facilities. As you're aware, we bring in 3% excise tax, which brings in about $1.5 million a year, and we bring in about $1.5 million a year just in an impact fee. The excise tax is not the issue, the impact fee is. But that being said, there's certain parts of the regulations that could cause penalties to the town that could impact the excise tax fee that we're collecting.
Before we go to, let me cut in for a minute. So we have a host agreement.
Yes.
Right now, which still has a couple of years left on it.
Yep.
So you're saying that this is going to take effect this coming March?
March 1st, 2024, these new regulations will take effect. And
even though the host agreement goes for 5?
The Cannabis Commission controls the issuance of licenses, and the oversight of host agreements. And I agree, retroactively, it should not impact us, but unfortunately, it does impact us.
Not fiscally, but more logistically.
I know that, yes, we have a contract in place, and that's where I'm going with this, is to hopefully try to, get ahead of the game, deal with the issues at hand. KP Law, who is has been on this and has their finger on the pulse with regards to the Cannabis Commission regulations and understands them from beginning to end, and has, as I indicated in my memo, several communities out there, many communities, in which have 1 to almost 10, or not 10, or 8 facilities within their community. They deal with this on a regular basis. They have an attorney dedicated to that. They have held informational seminars and webinars through the MMA on regards to the new cannabis regulations and the impacts that they're going to have on them. For example, KP Law currently is working with Holyoke, who their cannabis facility is Rise. And we are going to have the same issues with our facility, Rise, and they're already working with the community in Holyoke with regards to the attorney that will be represented Rise in our particular community. I believe that in discussions with Attorney DeLuca, we really need to have a dedicated special counsel to deal with this. It's a serious impact to the community, not only from a financial end, but could be from also a burdensome end on staff. I think we need to hire somebody that has a great understanding of these regulations that can assist us throughout this process. I know the cost per hour is a little bit more, but the cost in total will be less because they've already done this with many communities. They've already dealt with these host agreement issues. They're in court now, litigation with, I believe, if I indicated it, Haverhill, and a couple of other communities, because these facilities are not paying their impact fees. They're suing the community for the new regulations.
Thank you. So that clip gets predominantly what Victor was talking about at the very end, impact fees. Now, when these cannabis distributors and manufacturers and stuff came into town, there was a host agreement.
Correct.
And it provided for a certain set of monies for taxes. I believe it was sales tax or something like that. And so that the town was essentially promised, I think, like 3% or something like that. But there was also a category called impact fees, which was again another, I think, up to 3% of their profits. And so impact fees are exactly that, to take care of impact to the town created by this business. So we have Rise on School Street in the Navy Yard Mills. There's not a lot of sidewalks in the area. It's very heavily congested. So if the town said, okay, we're going to be putting in sidewalks, or we're doing a traffic study, we're doing certain things because your business is coming into town. Those are impacts. So those should be covered by the business. The facility over on Broadway, Lazy River. There seems to be a lot of traffic there. We're gonna do a study to upgrade that set of lights at Fox Ave and Broadway because we think we need to have.
Well, then you got a Dunkin' Donuts sitting there also.
And you have a Dunkin' Donuts on it, but maybe that that throat at that business needs to be widened. So we're going to essentially 3 lanes on Broadway with a turning lane. That's an impact. What the town has been relying on it is essentially a slush fund. It's nothing short of extortion. Why shouldn't these businesses want to be upset about it and say, hey, give us back that money? You haven't shown where the impact has been.
Well, I think has there been a statistical rise in any type of driving while impaired or something the police have to add things to? It could be partly for some police coverage. That's an impact of that business. It's like it's like a liquor store when you really think of it, right? I don't know. I just, if they have to pay the price, they pay the price.
So from my understanding, the contract with and the host agreement says that the town would keep track of what these impacts are.
Well, let's see what it is.
And provide essentially a bill of goods. This is what we needed impact money for, and this is what you owe us. It's not just, just sign a check to us. And
well, one thing about these places smell.
They do. So
they smell and they
in fact could be an impact.
Yeah.
And okay, what are you going to do about it?
I know. Like, say I'm coming back from somewhere, like I'm coming from the beach, and it was, the air is really clean. You get out of my car at our office, which is right near
next
there,
to Lazy River,
and it smells like somebody smoking pot in the parking lot, and it's the exhaust from Lazy River.
Yep.
No one's, I'm talking about an empty parking lot, so there's an impact there, but I don't know if there's any fees that go along with that.
So how do you codify that particular impact? Correct. So that's predominantly what they're complaining about, and of course, that could, from my understanding, that's probably in the realm of could be $3 million.
Oh.
So I mean that's a loss of that coming into the budget. Plus, if they prevail through the state and the courts and such, that's actually pulling money out of the town to repay impact fees that maybe should not have been there to begin with. So there's a lot of issues with that, and I think it's worth keeping an eye on.
Glad I wasn't the attorney who drafted that contract.
We have another clip that came shortly after that discussion about impact fees, and this is Joe DeRocco talking about.
I can't wait.
Talking about the licensing, and if they won't pay a tribute, maybe we get rid of them. So if you'd run that clip, please.
And I certainly understand, Selectman DeRocco, your concerns, and I appreciate those. And the the oversight is.
We don't have to play nice to begin with, because they have their own lobbyists who've got this stuff passed. So they don't give beans about Dracut or any other community. It's all about them making more money.
Right, but we gotta,
I don't
gotta deal with
disagree,
it.
but we have to adhere to the new regulations. We have no choice but to adhere to the new regulations. We've been.
I'm not sure that's 100%. If the townspeople voted to do away with them in their community, can they do that? If that was a ballot
I don't
vote?
believe so, but that's, again, another,
There is regulations in here that talks about non-renew of license, and it gets into deep regard, and that's, if the select board or selectmen decide not to do that, we would have to have our attorney be involved and that, there would be a process around that, and that's all.
I realize there would be a process, but you're telling me you can't. I don't see why we can. We can do it. Why? I don't see why. I mean, if the voters of Dracut took a stand that says, look, I don't want any marijuana in Dracut, what happened?
Then we would have to.
Council would have to.
We'd get council involved, and we'd dissolve those host agreements.
But is that a possibility? That's all I'm saying.
It is a possibility that could happen, but whether we want that to happen,
You
again,
start off by saying it can't. I don't believe it can't.
I didn't say, I think what I'm trying to say is there's a process within the regulations to do that. That I indicated, it's several hundred pages of
I know what
very
their
legal
lobbyists are
language.
doing. I know what their lobbyists are doing and got done.
Sure.
Why can't it work the other way?
No, I'm not going to disagree with you. At their
well, I will
hearings-
say, though, it can work the other way, and then, you know what, would it be recommended to work the other way? Probably not, but.
But it's, and I think it should give thought to them of what they're doing. I mean, they're doing it so that they make more revenue.
Right, but the state has cornered us, and they've taken over the requirements. They've decided that they're gonna determine what the host agreement looks like, they're gonna determine what the impact fee is, they're gonna determine whether we renew. That's just the way the laws are written right now. What are we supposed to
The
do?
state on a lot of things, all they care about is getting their fees. They don't care about
I don't
our fees.
disagree.
They care about their fees.
Right, there was no impact on the excise tax or the revenue that the state will collect. It definitely severely hampers a lot of these communities, and we're one of many communities out there that adopted this for those reasons, and we have to do what we can to be able to adhere to those regulations and put our best foot forward to work with these cannabis facilities so that we follow the law and we are able to continue to collect some type of an impact fee going forward.
So
What
like we,
aggravates me is we have a host agreement, and now that host agreement is being changed. The only reason they were able to get their license to begin with is they had to have a host agreement with the community. Now what they're doing is they're changing the host agreement. It just, I mean, their lobbyists are doing what they want to save them money.
I'm not disagreeing with you. At their hearing, there were several municipalities, communities, cities, mayors, town managers that spoke against the new regulations, and there were several cannabis facilities that spoke in favor of the new regulations because it certainly benefited. And I think that the regulations were lightened up a little because the impact fee now can go out to 9 years, where they were going to dissolve that after 5 years. But
Well, my interpretation was they were supposed to do another host agreement after the 5 years. Am I wrong?
so there's a renewal process as part of the
Right.
regulations.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm not. Again, these under, I think it was Governor Baker and in the Senate and everything. They charged the Cannabis Commission to adopt these regulations. As you are aware, one of the members from the Cannabis Commission was removed. I believe it was
Immediately after the public hearing.
after the public hearing back in September. So it was a 3-1 vote. It's a 5-member board, but they only have 4 members, and they voted in favor of the revised regulations, which is long, very detailed. It doesn't just talk about municipalities. It obviously talks about the retail and wholesale cannabis facilities and what they need to do. But I think for our purposes, we have a very large invested interest here. We have 4 retail facilities, 2 growth. We bring in close to $3 million a year. It would behoove us to make sure that we put our best foot forward. We get the right person or legal counsel involved in this, and I'm not, by no disrespect, saying that Murphy has $2 million couldn't do it, but KP Law has already done a lot of the legwork for us, and that's where that advantage is going to come in.
So similar to other instances that we're seeing in town, this is an example of the state holding us hostage again.
I think that last statement by Allison Janess is just priceless because, always throw it back at, there's nothing we can, we're being held hostage by the state. No, you're being held hostage by a contract that you signed.
Right.
With these cannabis facilities. I mean, it all comes back down to the impact and what impact has been done to the community. Now, one thing I would say is, okay, impact is, as I've been saying, is just that. At what point has that business been assimilated into the town where there's no longer an impact, that the town has adjusted to it? Certainly, after 10 years, you would think the town has adjusted to it. After 5 years, the way the current contract is written, I would think the town has adjusted to it. So I wouldn't think there would be an impact fee after that 5 years.
Well, first of all, some of the statements from Mr. Dracut to me were pretty ridiculous. He's talking about, well, maybe the town can come back and take their license away. Oh, if they do that, I've known, he has no trouble heading Dracut into court.
No, that's for sure. Mind you, he talked about how Dracut could vote to get rid of cannabis. Cannabis passed, when it was on the ballot, 75% to 25%.
Correct.
So, I mean, 3 out of every 4 people wanted cannabis.
And in town meeting, they won, 55 to 45%. Right. So...
the town wants, the citizenry wants cannabis here.
The citizen wants to get rid of it. It doesn't necessarily leave because they own property, they've made investments, and the value of their property will go down and the town gets sued over the difference of things they won't make. So there you go. The town could be really exposed.
So that gets into a very good point about, okay, it's very chilling on any sort of business atmosphere that you have in town, because any new business coming into town can think to itself, well, gee, does the Board of Selectmen want to drive me out of town too if I'm not paying a kickback? Angel Bachelucupo makes a very good point here. At the beginning of the meeting, Lazy River was given a citation for being such a good business neighbor in the town of Dracut. I mean, they were all clapping, and then after this clip, they're essentially saying, pay us our tribute or we're going to get rid of you.
I saw that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
how they look forward to doing things for Dracut, and they're getting
by all means, Lazy River has been a very good business partner, I think, for the town of Dracut. They've done a lot of stuff, a lot of volunteerism for cleaning up in certain areas and stuff like that, other than the stink around the place.
Joe voted against it, right?
Of course he did.
From the beginning.
Of course he did.
I think he had to vote for it because I think that there was a point where he had to vote for it. I'm not sure. I kind of remember back some selectmen meetings, but him and Allison Hughes weren't going along with any of this.
No, as a matter of fact, I think Allison Hughes had said that because she's personally against marijuana, that she would not vote for it, right, even though she really had an obligation in her duty to the town. If it was acceptable to the town, she should be voting for it.
Like I said, Mr. Dracut has never had a problem getting this town into legal trouble.
Well, as long as it doesn't come out of his pocket, I suppose.
Right, I guess. He said that too. It's not my money.
And he apparently doesn't care beans for a lot of things. So, so I thought that was very interesting. And as I said, I thought it was very telling for a business atmosphere in Dracut that I think a lot of people will say, do I really want to come to Dracut?
I'm sure
now?
Our new economic director, said, "Oh my God, what are they getting me into?"
Well, yeah, I mean, again, unless you're paying tribute to somebody, or paying tribute to the town of Dracut, just for the privilege of being here, I don't think that bodes well for any economic boom for
You know,
Dracut.
I wasn't going to be, I'm not going to be snarky, but I'm just, I'm not. Maybe I probably help, maybe I'm feeling John's, I'm feeling John's presence. Some snarkiness is coming over me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to stop.
What do you feel about the town manager's compensation? So rather than giving the town manager a raise, Tony had made a motion to give her a bonus of $5,000. So it's not necessarily attached to her base salary now.
So that means when she cashes out, she gets less, correct?
That's essentially his reasoning to it, that it does not make that $5,000
Well, first of all, I thought
permanent.
I didn't think she had the necessary experience to get paid that money in the first place. I'm sorry, and but a $5,000 bonus, that's probably with her salary. What is was that 3% or something like that?
Yes, I
She's
believe it
making
ended
about
up being
180,
about,
right?
yeah, it ended up being
so
about 3%.
It's okay. I mean, Tony saved us a couple dollars, but she probably has a lot of vacation that she's going to cash in when she decides to pick up and leave.
And there's kind of been
Well,
talk, about that. I mean,
I've known Ann for a long time. I actually like Ann, but I don't like her as a manager. And I thought that her problem is that she's a political manager. She came in on a 3-2 vote, and she's surviving on a 3-2 vote. So now it's all about politics. And that's where I said before, politics can come in, if you want to, sometimes doing the right thing, politics gets in the way of that. But so, whatever they did, I'm really not that concerned about.
I think most of the employees of the town got some 2 to 3% raise. So it seems like it was certainly keeping in line
Right.
with what everybody else was getting.
I'd rather get the bonus and the raise and get the cash up front.
Right, it wasn't prorated over a
No.
certain time period.
No.
It was just a one-time.
That's right.
One-time bonus, sure.
Now, did she sign a new contract? Because how long has she been on? Because my wife's been off for what? How long has Timmy been off? 3-4 years now.
Yeah,
She's had to come up to a new contract, right?
I believe her contract is coming up for renewal next year.
Oh, okay.
Though I'm not entirely sure, because I thought there was an extension somewhere in the initial contract with her. Why don't we talk about charter review?
Oh, you want to get me? You really want to get me in trouble?
Let's get you started.
All right. Well, I think Dracut has become too big for our current way we do things. I would like to have. Let's start with the politicals. I would like to have 7 selectmen. Maybe have 4 from different parts of town and 3 at large. So you're running town-wide, you're running district-wide. Kind of like Lowell model a little bit. So that the people in each little district maybe have somebody that they can turn to. Secondly, I'd like to see a mayor. I know John really disagrees with me, but I'd like to see a mayor with the town manager becoming a town administrator, reporting to the mayor. It doesn't seem like the manager seems like they're out of range. But if a town manager is a lousy job with a mayor, and the mayor keeps the person in there, well, then guess what? Now the mayor has to defend itself in an election.
So a mayor would essentially require us to go to a city form of government.
Correct. Well, Dracut's big enough now. What are we, 33,000 people?
Yeah, we're some 33,000, comparable, I think, to Methuen. And Methuen went to a city form of government a number of years ago.
And I think the most important thing about a charter review is an elected charter review. I don't want. First of all, Phil, with this present setup they have now, if I wanted to go on a charter review committee, or you wanted to go on a charter review committee, we're not going on.
Well, I think they're afraid of that.
But we're not going on, even though we're as a citizen we're qualified to be on that charter. Let alone, but it's who they believe we are, and so I would think an elected charter commission, not reporting to the Board of Selectmen, having their own chairman, setting up their own agendas, and deciding where they want to go. And, then you
And
put
reporting to town meeting.
reporting to town meeting, and then eventually town election. I just think, I think it's antiquated, and it probably, I like town meeting, I like going, but I think town meeting is kind of past its prime with a town of 33,000 people and 14,000 registered voters. What if 50% of the registered voters showed up at town meeting?
Well, so I think Chelmsford is probably of a similar size, but they have a representative town meeting.
They have representative town meeting, and that could be the same way. Instead of maybe going to 7 selectmen, that you have like maybe 15 or 20 people representing something.
I would think you would have probably 25 representatives from each district, or each precinct.
That you run.
You would have to run.
You have to run. Because that's some of my ideas. I'd like to have the superintendent report to the town manager, because they always seem to be in the middle of the budget negotiations,
Yep.
and maybe the schools get more money if the superintendent is reporting to the manager. So the manager is in charge of all administrative functions in the town, but the school superintendent still does school policy and works with the school committee. In doing, in working on curriculum, things like that.
No, that's how Lowell essentially handles it.
Yeah, but you separate the money from the. Sometimes you can't, because there's some things you want to do that you can't do.
Right.
But still, I think that may be a healthy thing to look at. So there's a bunch of little things that. I definitely would want to be on a charter commission, and I probably would put my name on a ballot for that.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the way it has now transpired that 2 meetings ago at the Board of Selectmen, they all agreed, and it passed unanimously, to have a charter review committee elected. And then
they did. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was 2 meetings ago, and then I think over that break, they realized that, well, we kind of lose control if it's elected.
Right. That's exactly why I wanted elected.
And so they brought it back at this past meeting.
3-2.
And it essentially,
so they did a
motion to reconsider
by somebody who voted.
Well, they all voted in the affirmative,
right.
So anybody could.
And then
have
it
made
went
the
down
motion.
3-2. Correct.
And then it went down 3-2. That it's no longer elected; it would be appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
No way.
And then they got into a
They've
discussion.
done that before.
They got into a discussion about, well, do we even need to have a body appointed right now, a committee appointed for this, because they're going to need a consultant, and there'll just be too much confusion. So the idea was passed that, why don't we have all the citizens just come to the Board of Selectmen and give us your ideas, and then we can decide if we need a committee. What a train wreck.
Is there anything by law that says they have to review the charter?
In the charter, it says that it needs to be reviewed in 10-year increments.
Okay, so I think we did it 10
Last
years ago.
one wasn't done in 2014.
And I went to a couple of those meetings, and it was the Board of Selectmen, and there wasn't really any avenue. I mean, they cleaned up a couple things, but basically, the way that the charter runs now, it keeps people in power.
It keeps the status quo.
It keeps the status quo. And I think, by having them all get elected at the same time, I would want them to get elected every 2 years, voting in November, and if enough people run, then you have a primary in September, along the lines of the state, so you're not doing extra elections. We do extra elections in Dracut. Why can't we be voting in November?
So that's an interesting thing. For the most part, most town form of government are required to vote in the spring, except for the town of Saugus. They, by a home rule petition, moved their election to November on odd number years, so it doesn't conflict with state elections, which are on even numbered years. So what you're saving there is that all your elections will be in November. Everybody will always. I mean, how often have you heard in a municipal election in May, oh, I thought we had our elections in November?
Right.
And then we had our elections on Mondays, and they always said, "Oh, I thought we did our elections on Tuesdays." No, so now we moved them to Saturdays, and is that any different?
Well, people, communication's a big thing. I mean, I know of people who went to their old voting areas and didn't realize they weren't there anymore. They're at the high school, even though there's signs all over the place. Voting here, voting these, and they just people don't pay attention.
So they just reconfigured some of those voting areas in our easternmost precincts in Dracut. Have been moved from the Richardson School, which is in the school complex.
You want to hear something funny? A couple of years ago at town meeting, I got up and I said, I think you were there, an unintended consequence of voting in one place is voter suppression, because some people aren't coming from across town to do after a long day of work. They're just not. So it basically brings out only the people who are more activists and than just the normal person. So, someone called the Attorney General's office and said I got up there they filed a complaint, and they said at a town meeting. He said that's the Wild Wild West. You can do whatever you want at a town meeting.
Anything goes there.
Imagine. I'm just wondering who did that. I have an idea who may have called that. Because I got a call with a friend of mine who. From law school that works in the attorney. Hey, I got something interesting. What happened? I started laughing. Someone's complaining about you speaking at a town meeting. I said, oh, that's great. What do they want you to do? Oh, take your license. I said, great.
Have at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, a lot of discussion at the Board of Selectmen meeting was essentially Allison Jeanette saying, well, she hasn't heard anybody say that they're interested in anything being changed, for some reason.
Okay, Allison,
she never hears anybody saying anything.
Allison, if you're watching, I'm interested in looking at changing, and I'm interested in serving. So there you go.
So I have mentioned a couple of items that I think need to be looked at. And whether they're changed or not, I don't know, but they need to be looked at. First one is the appointment of an assistant town manager. That falls solely on the town manager itself.
That's not approved by the board?
It's not. I think much like the police chief, the fire chief, and really the town manager, that needs to be, maybe that should be solely an appointment of the Board of Selectmen for an assistant town manager.
Or at least run it by them, right?
Correct. So much like the police chief and fire chief, they're ratified by the Board of Selectmen.
Right, correct.
So maybe that's a perfect way of doing it, but I think that needs to be codified in a new charter.
And I think we need to go back to the old charter that basically says, if you've worked, you can't be the town manager coming from a position of assistant town manager or anything for 5 years. Some type of because we need new blood. We need people who haven't been there forever. And I think we need new eyes at town hall.
I feel that particular change kind of diminished the quality of candidate that you were getting from
because you knew right when that happened that Duncan's days were numbered. The mechanism was going to kick in.
The fix was in.
Yep.
Another item that I would probably like to see reviewed is the planning board. Right now, it's appointed by town manager. I would seriously consider saying that should be an elected position again.
A lot of towns.
Most towns are elected.
And also Board of Health. The Board of Health agent.
Board of Health is often elected.
That's also elected, So, let's get representative government going again. Let's have people being voted in. But there's some drawbacks to that. Maybe special interests, come in and gives a little extra dough and things like that. But I don't think it could hurt right now with the way the situation
and to some degree it sometimes helps as a feeder for other positions. So if somebody's interested in running for selectmen, if they've been elected as planning board, it helps them. Right now, we get Allison Jeanette again. She feels that the positions on the planning board are lesser positions because they're only appointed.
When Allison ran, I like Allison, and I've spoken to her. When she first started running, I was kind of enthusiastic about her candidacy. She actually came to my house to knock. She was knocking on doors, and she happened to come to my door. And my son said to her, "Oh, you're the one replacing my mother." and so, oh, well, and she said, no, I can never replace you. It's very nice of them, but I think she ran a little bit of astray. I thought she would be an independent voice, somebody who would go with her own, but it seems like it's the status quo. She wants to keep things the same. I mean, they got to the point where they wanted to keep the majority so much, they went out and recruited. I think they went out and recruited Jennifer Kopkinski.
Oh, absolutely, they did.
And no, I like Jennifer and I have a lot of friends in the law community that are the same, right? I just think she's just been a vote. I just see that, and I'm like, I was a little disappointed in that because I had some hope for her too, because I thought she's an attorney. She'd have an independent mindset, and she just walked right along the line. Even when you guys when she was nominated for chair, she voted for someone else because that was all in the bag.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have an issue with when I was asked to be put on the zoning bylaw review committee, and she essentially just parroted the information
she
that
had no idea. You think she had any idea what happened? I mean, they took an issue and twisted it, and it was actually used in your election when you ran against Joe, that you were ethically challenged because you resigned to avoid an ethical challenge, which made no sense to me.
Right.
That started on the radio show on Saturday morning because that was a way to attack you. So and I just things like that. I look at it, it makes no sense to me. And first of all, on that bylaw review committee, let me get that one out, right?
Okay.
There's developers, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be a better thing for a developer to be on that type of committee instead of an architect? Because all you're going to do is a developer's going to come to you and say, hey, look, I want to put something here. And you're going to say, okay, and you're going to look up what's the zoning.
What's the zoning?
And you're going to design whatever the zoning is. You're not going to try to manipulate the zoning.
Right.
Now, but you have developers there who may want another 5 feet on the side yard, right? Or another,
Could be a number of different
Could be a number of different scenarios where an architect wouldn't care. He's going to draw up plans. He's going to take what do the bylaws say, right? What does it say? And it's, okay, I got 15 feet side yard. Well, that's how you're going to design that house. Or an addition, or a deck, or something.
Yeah, as I've said to one person, I'll design a project one way or another. I mean,
it doesn't matter to you.
It's just a guideline for me.
Yeah, so I'm glad I got that one off my chest.
So recently, I had somebody come in my office, and this gets into the essentially the bylaws, and they're looking to do a project in our Dracut Center neighborhood overlay district. Kind of wording.
That's down by Town Hall, correct?
That's by Town Hall, and it's very...
And they got a project going on down there, right?
So there are a number of projects. I mean, Wendy's is being redeveloped. They want to shrink down the main footprint and add some additional speculative spaces. Where J&J Heating is,
right,
at EA, it's doing a project there, which is some speculative spaces.
Correct.
And a new shop for himself.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, none of those projects are being done utilizing the overlay district. They're using the underlying zoning. So if they're trying to develop a new town center for another downtown area, why aren't they going to these developers and saying, hey, use some of these guidelines? Some of the guidelines allow them to pull the buildings closer to the street.
Okay.
So it makes it look more like a downtown area.
Right.
You can do mixed use. You can get residential into a project if you wanted. So with the one over at Wendy's probably doesn't qualify as wouldn't be as good. But I mean, where Eddie Aon is, that's a big building.
Well, you and I discussed this. The area of that off of Greenmont, that parcel of land that they're using for not elderly housing, but
for
affordable.
The senior housing.
Right. I had an idea of trading with the town and putting the housing and a split use thing at Moynihan Field, and take that and take Moynihan and put that where that Greenmont is.
So the Richardson farm off of essentially Bridge Street and Greenmont, there's a 17-acre parcel.
So we could have some housing,
Yep.
but split use with like storefronts underneath it,
Yep.
and whatever, and that could have made a nice use of that whole area. And I mentioned that to somebody, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads.
So I followed up on a very similar item, and in talking with, I'm not sure who in town, but their first response was, we can't do anything with Monahan Park because it's under the jurisdiction of DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation,
Okay.
in Boston. I questioned that, and I went to somebody I knew who would know the answer, and they said, absolutely not. That belongs to the town of Dracut.
That's right.
Town of Dracut takes care of it. You can do anything you want with it. So I mean, it gets back into a lot of the authority that as they're speaking, those in power, to some degree, they sometimes blatantly lie
even
to get away from it.
Well, we see that, right? It's like, did you see the Department of Education secretary use a Ronald Reagan quote that didn't finish it?
Yes.
He said something like, when government comes to you knocking at your door, and how did Reagan finish that, right? Reagan said, well, lock it and run, or something like that, right?
Well, I believe that the
Run
quote
like hell.
actually was the 9 most frightening words in the English language.
That's
is,
right.
I'm from the government, I'm here to help
you. Right.
And the Secretary of Education cut out the first part and said, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
And you should be thanking me.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you turn around and run, right?
Yeah.
Especially if your parents in Virginia, and things like that.
Absolutely. So I think that was a pretty lively conversation.
Well, we always do.
Well, you and I, some people would think it's a snooze fest.
It's funny. I kind of go. I'm kind of conceptual in some thoughts, but I was. This has nothing to do with Dracut, but I live in a seasonal community in Maine for the summer. We go up there. Yeah, everybody knows that, but it's seasonal. We come home for the winter, and so we're like half time, spending half time up here, half time down there, and I'm thinking, okay, we're property owners. And I'm thinking, is seasonal constitutional? So I spent today on my computer trying to look up cases to say, well, we're property owners who pay taxes year-round. And, is that constitutional for someone to say you can't use your property for 4 to 5 months out of the year? And, I still haven't found the case.
You're still searching that
I
one
feel
out?
it's a kind of a case to point.
Well, I wish you luck on that one. Listen, thank you, everybody, and thank you for the phone call that we had. I think we had some good academic conversation here.
Had some fun.
And as always, you can follow us on Facebook. You can go to DATV, DracutTV.org, and look us on demand there also. And just remember that when it's a Wednesday and it's 6:30, it's What's Happening Dracut. Thank you.
Thanks.